Let me tell you about 3 mistakes that React developers make. They range from design mistakes to mistakes that will take down your application, and we don't want to do that. We'll learn about why they're mistakes and how to fix them, and we will learn about React internals in the process. Let's get right into it. Mistake number 1 is invoking component functions directly. So here we have an application that has 2 components. We've got an email field component and we have an app component. And the email field is simply a controlled input. It just has some state to manage the email and then the input field. And then the application component currently just has a div in it. So let's go and bring the email field into our application. Now I'm going to use the JSX syntax for this because it's the easiest thing to do. All right, this looks pretty good. We have our email field up here, type into it, looks fine. And if we go over here to our React Developer Tools Components tab, which you definitely should have installed, we see that we have 2 components. We have the app component at the top that has no state, and then we have the email field component down here that has a hook that has our current state in it. You can even change that state, and we can see that state updating dynamically. How freaking cool is that? You should definitely have this thing installed. So let's try and outthink React. Let's look at this and say, wow, this email field, it's a function. We should just be able to call that function. Isn't that what this JSX syntax is doing? Well, let's try that. Let's go and instead of using JSX here, let's instead create an expression, get email field, and invoke it. See what happens. Does it blow up? Well, no, it actually doesn't blow up, and it seems to work. The only indication that something may be off is now we don't have the email field component anymore. We just have the app component. And we have something called an email field hook, which is kind of weird. What we've essentially done is we have merged app and email field into one super component. And we've turned email field into our own custom hook and invoked it right in the middle of our return statement. Now, one drawback right away is when we change the state here, the app component re-renders right away. So we have lost the encapsulation of re-render. When we had the email field as its own component before, then changing the data in that email would only update the email field component. Now we're actually updating the app as well. So that's right away something that's not great. But hey, let's push on. Let's see if we can do more with this. Let's go and take email field and actually make a bunch of them. Let's make 4 of them. And now we see that Console Ninja here, which is this red text, is showing us a preview of coming attractions. It said it rendered more hooks than during the previous render, which is absolutely true. So let's go back over here. Is it still working? Okay, so it looks like it's working. And I can even type stuff in there. And it does work. So that's one of the problems of this particular mistake. It looks like it's working until it doesn't, and then it blows up and it's bad. So let's make it blow up. Let's go back into our code. Let's get rid of these extra email fields. And let's imagine that our product manager is asking us to put a switch above this email field that basically toggles whether that email field is shown or not. So we'll go and add a Boolean for that switch. We'll call it send email. And then we'll add some UI for the checkbox. This just has the input field, which is controlled, which is the checkbox field, and then send me emails. Hit save. I go back over here to Arc. It works, no problem, but it doesn't actually hide or show this email field. So let's go and use this send email to toggle that. So we'll say if we have send email field true, then we show email field, and we're going to start at false, which means that by default we're not. So let's go take a look. And we have send me emails. Let's click on that. And boom. So what happened? Well, now we've taken down the app. We have, according to React, rendered more hooks than during the previous render. So how did that happen? Well, if we look back over here, the first time we rendered app, we had this send email, and send email was rendered to false. And that's the one hook, would be the useState hook. Came down here, and because this was false, we didn't render email field. So we had one hook in app. And then the second time around, when we clicked on send email and turned it to true, we again re-rendered app, and we came down here, and now we went to send email. We said, great, it's true. So we're going to render email field, which brought in another hook. So we started with 1 and we went to 2, and that violates the rule of hooks, which you can never have a different number of hooks based on the render. You can never have conditional hooks. So there you go. The fix for this is pretty obvious. You just change email field to be JSX invoked. And now everything works as expected, and we can go take a look over on our components, and we can see that now app has its own state, which is currently true because this is true, false, true, false, true. And then email field has its state, which is currently set to nothing, but we can go and set it. So there you go, perfect. And everything is doing what it should. When email field updates its state, only it updates, and when send me emails updates, then the entirety of app updates. So everything's cool. But let's go back and take a look at the code and see if we can understand this a little bit better. So what is the secret sauce here of JSX? Why does this work and invoking email field directly not work? Well, to understand that, you have to understand how your React environment works. You do not send JSX to the browser. You send JavaScript to the browser. So if you've got JavaScript plus JSX or TypeScript plus JSX, you have to transpile that source code, this source code right here, into JavaScript before you send it to the browser. And that's often done by systems like Babel or TypeScript. So I'm going to go and take this email field tag and take it over to the Babel REPL. So this is a test bed. It's a website. You can just paste in your code and see what the Babel transpiler is going to create given the input source code. And so the input source code is just going to be email field here. And what Babel creates is react.createElement email field null. Wow, that's a handful. So let's go and take that and paste it in here and see if that actually works. So I replace email field here with this secret sauce that was created. Let's see how that works. Go back over to Arc. And yeah, this looks great. So this is exactly what we had before. So what is react.createElement? Well, react.createElement is how you create components in React. So you give it the component function or component class or the tag name. You can also do things like div here, and that's fine. And what it does is it invokes, in this case, the email field function, gets back the resulting elements, it adds those to the VDOM tree, and it says that that part of the VDOM tree is controlled by that component rendering function, email field, so that when email field refreshes, then that part of the tree is updated. The second parameter here are the properties. We're not sending any properties in this case, but if you were to send properties, you would go and send a object here with all your properties. And then the third argument would be any children of this component. And that could be just a single element or an array of elements or what have you. Now, obviously, the easiest fix in this case is simply not to do React create element manually, but to let JSX do that for us. And there you go. So what have we learned? Well, we've learned not to invoke component functions directly, and we've learned a little bit about the React internals and react.createElement. Now, our next mistake is more of just a coding design issue. Mistake number 2 is nesting component definitions. We have 2 components here. We've got app, we've got email field. And let's say that we don't want email field to be used by anything other than app. Well, what I've seen folks do is go and take the definition of email field and literally drop it inside of the definition of app like this. And it looks good, right? I mean, kind of neat containment. So let's see if it actually works. And wouldn't you know it, it does work. And this seems actually pretty nice. Why am I raining on this parade? Well, a couple of big reasons. First, even at this size, this component is starting to get a bit bloated. And when you take this pattern out to 10, 15, 20 subcomponents, which I have definitely seen, that component size, just the physical code size is huge. And it starts to get hard to reason about. Second, it's impossible to unit test email field because it's embedded in app like this. So you can't unit test these components in isolation. Third, it's a potential performance problem. every time we are re-rendering app, we are giving a new reference to email field. We're redefining it or passing that off to React. And it's unclear how React should respond when we keep changing the reference to the component function continuously. And 4, you've got a potential leakage problem between the host component and the subcomponents. For example, this send email could be used within email field, and it's not clear if that's the right thing to do. Certainly, you're not using the basic mechanism of React, which is to do prop drilling or context. You're kind of doing this implicit sharing of state, which is not great. So I just don't think this is the right thing to do, and it's unnecessary, really. Even when email field was outside of app, it was still not outside of this app module. The only thing exported from this app module is app. So email field is invisible to the outside world unless it's exported. So there's no reason to do this. Now, before we get on to our final mistake, can I ask you for a favor? If you've been taught this methodology of defining components within other components, please comment in the comment section down below and tell me who taught it to you or where you learned it, because I really want to have a chat with those folks and get some information about why they're teaching it, what the rationale is, and hopefully convince them not to teach it, because I think it's a really bad idea. Now, our third mistake is kind of a fusion between the first 2 mistakes. Mistake number 3 is so convoluted and unnecessary, I couldn't even come up with a good short name for it. Let's just call it locally invoked component functions. All right, let's go take a look at our app here. And let's say that we just want to go and add in an H1 from my app right at the top. Easiest way to do that is to just go and add in an H1 from my app right at the top. I don't know why people are doing this, but okay, so we've got my app up here, and let's go back to the code. And what I've seen are people doing this. They'll go and create an expression. They'll go and create a component function, which renders my app. And they'll try and see if that works. It doesn't work. And in fact, it gives you a console error about how functions are not valid React children because they're passing to React CreateElement, the div, and then the div has children in it, and one of those children is this function, and React is like, function? What? So to get around this, people are then going and turning this into an expression and then invoking it. Okay, and the result is it works. But it's a fusion of the first 2 mistakes in this video. The first mistake of invoking a component as a function, which is just a bad thing to do. And then the second mistake of defining a component locally. In this case, we're not giving it a name, but we are defining it locally. So it's kind of a fusion of the first 2 mistakes, and it has all of the downsides of both of those. So the easiest thing to do here is just to go and make it the H1 my app. Don't overcomplicate stuff. I don't know where this pattern comes from. Might be another language, tough to say, but please don't do this. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed learning about these 3 mistakes, and you now understand why they're mistakes and how to avoid them, and you've learned a bit about React internals in the process. If you have any questions or comments, please put that in the comment section down below. If you liked the video, hit that like button. If you really like the video, hit the subscribe button and click on that bell and you'll be notified the next time a new Blue Collar Coder comes out.